Hey there, I'm Mr. Business Plan. Every day I crunch numbers and build presentations to explore potential investments across the globe. And this is you. You're super late to school again. You missed the bus because you overslept. Mom is going to kill you. You can't miss school again. You're already way too behind. But you personally don't care that much. Your mother doesn't understand you. You'll build the next big thing soon enough. Why even bother with a decent education? It's not your fault you're late. You have a curse. You're never on time for anything. One day you tried taking the earlier bus. The bus was cancelled. So you went back home, only for the next bus to arrive shortly after. It's the only way you can justify it. How else would you miss all of these buses? Why else would their schedules be so volatile? You even tried walking once, and then you broke your foot. Now tell me that's not bad luck. You even couldn't go to school for a whole week. That was one of the best weeks of that school year. It wasn't about your poor planning skills. No, that's impossible. It wouldn't explain always being late. Surely you'd be on time for something. You didn't really care enough for this to be an issue, until it eventually did become one. The teacher warned you if you were late again for class that you would have detention. You tried explaining you were cursed, but she would have none of it. One of your classmates were literally your neighbor, and she was never late, so how could you be late all the time? You had no choice. You need to find a way to be on time. Your determination filled the air. While walking, you looked around to see if there was anything that could help you. Lo and behold, there it stood. A bike. It's beautiful, conveniently abandoned. Its tires were stolen. Also, it's completely covered in rust. It's actually probably very dangerous to a certain extent. You wonder if it was like this when it was abandoned, or whether the test of time took its toll on it. You'd love to give it a home, and I bet the bike would love to function again. This began your symbiotic relationship with the bike. The only matter was, how do you even take it home? Somehow you managed. Took it to a bike shop the next day. For the price of repairs, you probably could have bought a new bike anyway. Well, it wouldn't be the same thing, I guess. This one and you had a special bond. It functioned, seemed to be working just fine. Regardless, you still got detention because now there was this new thing called bike traffic, and you were just stuck in the middle of it. The moment you left your bike, you would see this kind of traffic completely disappear. I'm pretty sure you are cursed. But whatever, that's not the point of this story. Bikes really are the best mode of transport. They don't require any fuel, they're quick and efficient to use and learn, and they're very easy to park. This got you thinking. You know you aren't the only one facing difficulties in traffic. Your house is really close to student dorms filled with international students. They have no semblance of time. They're students. They're always late. Do you think you could possibly rent your bicycle out to some of them? It's obvious that you're always late, so why not try it? I mean, you also did pay something like $500 just to repair it. Surely you could convince someone to rent your bike. How about $25 for a full 24 hours? That's a pretty good deal, you think. Now you had this semblance of an idea in your head. What if you had 20 bikes? If you rented them out all at the same time, you'd be making $500 a day. That's some sweet cash. More than what your grandmother is giving you. You only have one bike though, so you should probably focus on that one first. Do people even want to rent bikes? Well, the only way we can learn is by trying. You take your bike to the nearest park, along with some hand-drawn works of art. You drew them last night. It took quite a lot of time, honestly. Your artistic skills are widely unappreciated, though. I'm sure people will be very impressed. The bikes will sell themselves, basically. You're not a corporation. You carry passion with you. And that passion will be what convinces people. At that moment, whether it be divine justice or just straight out bad luck, I was also walking in the park that day. I, Mr. Business Plan. You don't see many sentient coins wandering around, so he immediately recognized me. And for some reason, you really like talking about business plans with me. And just start talking about your amazing plan to sell bikes. I was incredibly uninterested with what you were talking about. The discussion ended with you recommending that I invest in your little venture. This way, you could have a whole army of bikes. Surely you wouldn't be late anymore if you had let's say, 50 bikes, right? I take out a stack of cash and tell you to buy whatever you can with it. Just leave me alone, man. make it a shareholder's loan or whatever. Your enthusiasm is momentarily silenced. You ask why I didn't do the whole modeling montage thing that I usually do. You really didn't plan this whole venture out. You wanted to hear what I would say. You don't even know if this will make you any money. Ugh, fine. But you're gonna leave me alone after this, I say. I take out the world's most advanced calculator and begin modeling at the park, where I was just out for a walk during my half-hour break. This was a fun one, honestly. It's one of those basic rental-as-a-service models. These type of businesses tend to have upfront costs, which in this case is the purchasing of bicycles. For the business to succeed, the cost of each bicycle must be covered through rentals. If we were to charge $25 as we initially planned, it would take 40 rental days for each bicycle to cover their own cost. This is assuming each bike costs around $1,000. This doesn't account for additional cost items, which include your own living expenses, potential rental of a store, and lost or damaged bicycles. The key factor here in this business is demand. For someone to want to rent a bicycle, there needs to be demand for it. A necessity, let's say. If it's relatively easy to get around, people won't need to rent a bike, and they won't. Unless there is a certain kind of experience people can have while riding a bike. On the other hand, if it's going to be used on a day-to-day basis, if someone is going to use it to go to work, if they're going to use it on a daily basis for, let's say, entertainment purposes, then it makes sense for them to just buy the bike instead of renting it out from you. So there is this fine line of people who will be willing to rent out a bicycle from you. So I've pinpointed 3 potential types of markets that we can enter. Now, number 1 are touristic destinations. These are places where there are scenic routes available for tourism purposes and people can travel using a bike there. Number 2 are universities and places where university students accommodate and find entertainment. University students come from abroad usually, and these students don't really have the opportunity to purchase their own car or their own bicycle or their own transportation means. And since these students are there seasonally, it might make a lot of sense for them to rent a bicycle when they need it. And next, we have large parks and recreational zones that are located in the outdoors. Places where there are no practical need for bikes, but rather it's a leisure activity and it's entertaining for the people who come to these parks. So trying to rent your bike here at this park was a really good idea on your side. Good job! While doing this rental business, you need to have someone who will be the customer-facing person, so someone who will be manning the bikes. In our business scenario, this will be you, so it's a one-man business kind of thing. It's primarily a rental business. For the sustainability of the business, all you have to do is give the bikes to the customers. You're going to have to also learn how to repair these bikes. Luckily, we're in the age of technology and you can learn a lot of things online. So let's assume we rent it on a daily basis. This means that we can rent one single bicycle 365 times each year. If you multiply that by the number of bikes you have, then that's the number of maximum rentals you can do each year. So if you had 20 bikes, that would be 7,300 bike rentals each year. In year 1, assuming we have 6 bikes, we can potentially rent out 2,190 days worth of bicycles. If we make additional purchases, we can bring the number all the way up to 12,000 in year 10. Now, unless you're some genius biking guru, you're likely not going to fully book all of these bikes at the same time, all the time. So let's assume 40% of days you will be renting out a bike. we would have to reach an average daily rental of 2 on year 1, all the way to 13 in year 10. This is quite achievable, honestly, especially if you have a strong destination that has strong demand. Well, if utilization rate is 40%, why don't we just buy 40% of the bikes that we're planning to purchase? This way we'll use all of the bikes all the time. Well, here we have seasonality coming into play. It's not really the case that the bikes you purchase will always have the same amount of demand throughout the year. There will be certain time periods where there is greater demand for bicycles. So let's run a small 1-year simulation with a 40% utilization rate target. Although I call this a simulation, it's basically me using a random number generator to create 50 different scenarios, let's say. It's basic randomization. Each rental day you have to have a certain utilization rate. This can be somewhere between 0% to 100%. 100% would signify that we rented out the entirety of our bikes that day, and 0% would signify that we didn't rent out anything whatsoever. We can see that through different simulations, the number of bicycles rented monthly shows significant difference, and this is despite having only a basic random number generator in place. The reason we need 6 bikes when we have 40% utilization is to ensure we can meet demand all the time. When talking about seasonality, just think about where you are currently living. In this location that you're currently residing in, when are you most likely to be renting out a bicycle? The impact of seasonality will be much more recognizable in real life, with tourism destinations and universities having clear on and off seasons. This is actually pretty good for you. Based on all we have studied, I see a potential for you to have a steady salary while running this business model. For this, however, you will have to suffice with having a monthly salary of only $485 in year 1. This also assumes you're not paying any rent and utilities, so you're just basically freeloading from your parents or whatever. Now, there are certain things we can include into the financial model but are worth considering, so let's go through them first. Now, number 1, each location in the world will have different regulations in place for how you can rent bicycles in a public setting. You need to ensure that your municipality or local government allows you to be able to do this business first. If your business is technically illegal, then Mr. Business Plan just handed you cash over to do something illicit, and Mr. Business Plan would not want to do that, right? If there is something illegal going on, you better be sure to give me my money back. Next up, do we have any competitors in where we're looking to settle? Bikes function like a commodity unless you do something really clear to differentiate yourself. And there are very clear ways to differentiate yourself, right? You could have, different styles for your bikes. You could have higher quality bikes. If you do have competition in the region, you're going to have to spend a lot on marketing and capital expenditures to be able to differentiate yourself to the public. In my current state of the financial model, I assumed we're the sole market player and we don't need to really spend anything on competition. And my last point actually comes to seasonality directly. In our financial model, we're assuming that we will be able to have a 40% utilization rate through a 365-day period. Now, if it's the case that the season there where you can use the bike is only 6 months, then our period of financial modeling should be 180 instead of 365. If there are off seasons, you need to consider what you will be doing during those times. You should probably seek potential work opportunities then. So please don't quit school that quickly. Now let's jump to the rating. The addressable market size of the business is based on its location. It appeals to a local audience. There will always be a real demand for transportation, in particular with increasing traffic in metropolitan areas. The implementation of app-based scooter and bike solutions will likely capture a strong portion of most markets. In total, I score the market opportunity at 5.0 out of 10. The business requires little upfront capital expenditure to launch. There is a limited risk of cost overrun as there is a small amount of fixed costs. There are ample opportunities to improve the portfolio of offerings over time, with scooters and potentially even cars. However, there is little proof that consistent revenue is possible overall in this business. I give viability of the business model 7.9 out of 10. Scalability is possible, but the requirement of acquiring new bicycles for each new location means a strong upfront investment for each new shop opened. Potential of tackling regulation in each new opening may result in an exhausting expansion cycle. I give scalability of the business 4.3 out of 10. It's quite challenging to enter an existing market, as established market players already have the largest piece of the pie. You don't want to be the second bike guy in the neighborhood. Replicating the business model itself isn't very challenging either, and a strong competitor can take over a market with better quality or branding. Replicability gets 4.2 out of 10. There isn't something groundbreaking about the bike rental business, and we haven't played into establishing something new. The only potential disruption could come from an app-based bike rental. While they do perform fine, they still haven't obliterated the bike rental business. I give disruption potential 2.3 out of 10. Taking all of this into consideration, our final score is 4.7 out of 10. Your unhinged enthusiasm visible from your face makes me wonder if you even listened to a single word I said. You thanked me, took the cash, and left the park. The next time I would see you, you would have several bikes to our name. Looking forward to see how this goes. Let me know what you think of this business plan in the comments. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.